Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for episode 7 in Chronicles and Collecting, where we're going to talk about the metal build EVA Unit 01, as well as a little bit of a primer on Evangelion. And I'm already laughing because there's no possible way that I could kind of even hope to describe this show, in the course of 15 minutes while doing an unboxing. This is kind of more of the type of show that people would write like a PhD thesis about. But let's start off with the basics. It's a 26-episode show by Studio Gainax. It came out in 1995, and it's been released in various edits, movies, and sort of cuts since then. The absolute kind of bare bones, episode 1 opening summary of the show is basically Earth has been attacked by these creatures called angels, kind of like a giant Godzilla monster with a little bit of a biblical flair to it. And they have this kind of special operations group called NERV, which is tasked with sort of trying to come up with, some sort of defense for the Earth, and they create the EVA units. It's run by a man named Gendo Kari, who, in the understatement of the century, is a very, very bad father and a very, very selfish man. He calls his 14-year-old son, who I think he had abandoned 11 years ago, to come to Tokyo 3, where he has his NERV headquarters, so that he could pilot this EVA-01 test unit. Now, again, that's kind of like the very surface level of the show. Kind of, I would say somewhat like, minus the father abandoning their child, kind of what you might expect from kind of like a super robot show, right? Where it's just like there's a father and he runs this organization and he created this like super cool robot that his son is going to pilot. And obviously this show is really playing on those expectations. At the first surface level, it is a fun show that has a bunch of cool robots fighting like a bunch of cool monsters. But that is really not doing the show justice. What it's really about this like psychological analysis of these characters who are all like messed up in all sorts of crazy ways, and their relationships with each other and how they take advantage of each other and try to use each other, sort of for their own means. Evangelion is a pillar of modern anime. One of the best shows of all time, and I would highly recommend anybody to watch it. Hopefully seeing this like cool robot will maybe give you the encouragement you need to go check it out. It's available on Netflix. The show is. I'll quickly kind of mention the different versions of the show that there are, because there's a lot of different names and numbers and this, that, and the other thing. So the original series was 26 episodes. Okay. And kind of famously, the producers of the show sort of ran out of money towards the end and maybe did not get to give the show the original ending that they would have loved to give it. So that's when they kind of started with these various, not reboots, but kind of remakes and re-edits and additions. So first they did a series of movies called Death and Rebirth. So the first part, which was Death, was sort of like a 70-minute retelling of the first 24 episodes of the show. Then Rebirth was sort of a new take, on episode 25. Now that sort of new take evolved into its own thing, which became the basis of the kind of second Evangelion movies called The End of Evangelion, which in and of itself is made up of 2 episodes, which is episode 25 Prime and episode 26 Prime, which is not really like an alternate retelling of the 25th and 26th episode, but sort of like a different take on the retelling, maybe from a different point of view or from a different character's point of view. And all that kind of stuff is on Netflix. And then that Evangelion Rebirth edit of the first 24 episodes, that had some additional footage added. And then that footage got re-edited into the episodes 21 through 24, and they became like the director's cut version. There's also like a number of other kind of like slight re-edits and recompilations of some of these movies, which I'm not really going to worry about. Maybe there's like one slightly different scene or the audio is slightly different. I don't think, it's super important to get into. But then there's also the rebuild of Evangelion, which is a complete sort of retelling of the story. And I think kind of the idea is that maybe they would know the ending at the beginning and, could properly set everything up. That's a 4-movie series that came out over the course of 14 years. The first one came out in 2007, and the last one came out just this very year. And of course, nothing in Evangelion ever has like a normal name. So the movies are called 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and the final one is 3.0 plus 1.0. I think there's some sort of like musical symbol in there as well because it looks cool. I think those maybe right now aren't on any streaming services. You'd have to get them via Blu-ray. I've watched the original show. I've watched the original movies. I've not watched the rebuild yet. I'm waiting for the 4th Blu-ray to come out, and then I'll just marathon them all. But again, highly, highly recommend the show. We're not going to really be getting into the detailed analysis and psychoses of the various characters. We're just going to look at the main unit that's piloted by Shin from a line called Metal Build. And very quickly before we open it up, I just want to do a little bit of a discussion of Metal Build because we haven't talked about it on the channel before. So Metal Build is, also another Bandai line, and Bandai being the same people that make the Robot Spirits line and the Soul of Chogokin line, which I've done a number of unboxings of on this channel. So Metal Build is sort of like this like hyper premium line. They do mostly Gundams, and I think they look really cool. The reason that I sort of don't collect the Metal Build lines is sort of 2 or 3-fold. So first is that they're bigger than the Robot Spirits. So the Robot Spirits are, probably maybe like 5 or 6 inches, whereas the Metal Build would be like 6 to 8 inches. And I like kind of all my figures to be in scale to each other. So the Soul of Chogokins, in my opinion, should be like, much, much bigger than the Gundams. So by having like, like a 5-inch Gundam, and then you have, say, something like the Star Galgaigar that we looked at that's like, 10 or 11 inches, that scaling kind of makes sense to me in my mind. But having the Metal Build ones would just sort of look off in my mind. Kind of another reason that I don't like the Metal, well, not that I don't like it, I love it, that I don't collect the Metal Build line is that they really only do a very few figures. And it's mostly just sort of like the main Gundams from the show. And, I just like all my stuff to match. So I decided to go with the Robot Spirits over the Metal Build. But Metal Build is a super cool line. Really expensive. Some of them are like super hard to get. Fortunately, I was able to kind of pick this Metal Build up for the retail price. They had a few left over at a shop. The kind of last reason that I don't collect the Metal Builds is, so before I knew that they even made Evangelion Metal Builds, I was looking at the Gundam Metal Builds and I was like, man, they don't look like Gundams. They all have like a finish that makes them look like EVA units. And maybe it's just because I haven't seen them in person. Like, they're very metallic and sparkly, and maybe just the pictures don't give them justice. I'm sure they look amazing in person. But then I saw that they had an Evangelion one, so I was like, well, I've been saying that Metal Build looks just like Eva, so I should just get those. That's how I wound up with this guy. There's basically kind of 4 total figures in the line. There's an EVA-01 unit, then there's another EVA unit, I believe it's 02, and then there's 2 different versions of each of those. So this right now is the 2020 version, which is like the upgraded version. My understanding is that it's basically, for the EVA-01 unit, it's basically exactly the same, except it has, I think, like 1 or 2 extra weapons, and I think that there's a little bit of like extra detailing, so I figured I'd pick that one up. All right, I've been yapping without opening up figures for long enough, so let's get right into this. And this thing is we'll see in a second, but it kind of has this like really cool base that's kind of where he's launching. There's a lot of stuff in here. Oh god, I don't know how I'll ever get any of this back in. Oh, there's all the pieces. All right, so before we get into all these accessories, of which there are a ton, let's take a look at the actual figure itself. Let's get my knife here to cut this off. There's a lot of tape. All right, so let's open up and take a look at the figure itself. All right, so can I get this right on the camera here? I mean, you could just see the level of detail on this thing is ridiculous. I mean, I'm taking a look at the back right now. You could just see all those little like nooks and crannies, and just everything, just detail, just lots of little stuff painted on, like these symbols over here. Awesome figure. And, I could see why these go for $350. And it's also got these like shoulder pads, and you can see even on the shoulder pads, it's got like markings and stuff. It says it says Evangelion. All right, so let's put. Oh, actually, that guy is going to stand up on his own. All right, so let's take a look at some of these different accessories that it comes with. So I think this is going to be the big one. This is sort of like his one of his main weapons. And just to put this in scale, so it's like almost twice the size of the figure itself. I'll definitely be doing a pose with him holding this. Put that on the side for now. And then here's just like, you probably know that I love everything to have a stand, and I love like the customized stands like for each individual figure. So this right here is again just like a little stand that you could build, to put the EVA unit on there. And I think that's, so I guess kind of like famously in the show, the EVA units can only operate for 5 minutes. Otherwise, they have to stay on battery, and they have these like giant plugs that go into their backs. So this is, I believe that this actually, I think you could actually put the plug together and kind of plug him in. I think that's what all this stuff is. I'll probably hit pause for a second and build up this base. But before we do that, let's just take a quick look at some of the weapons. That should be out of the way over there. This glue's going to come off. As you've heard me complain about numerous times before, it's so hard to get these little plastic things off, and then as soon as you get them off, everything just goes flying. All right, so let's go over some of the highlights here. I think, I'm not 100% sure what these are. I think they might be like chest plates or something. You got 2 of those. Got sort of a more traditional sword. Those are just pieces for the base. Oh, this is the plug that I was talking about that kind of plugs into them. I believe that these are shin guards or shinji guards. Obviously got 2 of those. This is a piece of a gun, I believe. Then he's got a pistol, which I find it hilarious that there's just like this giant like mech just like holding like just sort of a normal pistol. Here's another sword. Here's like a dagger. Here's another dagger. And then in sort of addition to all of that, there's, like a bunch of different hands. This one kind of looks like he's giving a thumbs up, but I think he's actually just supposed to be, it's just like a trigger finger. I'm not going to go through, I don't think it's necessary to go through every single one of these hands, but as you can imagine, there's, a variety of different hands, to use all these different weapons. I'm going to pause for a second, read through this instruction booklet, put this guy together, and I'll show you whatever kind of cool things I discover. I'll see you in a minute. And we are back. So as you can see, I finally got this guy all together and I posed him, and it's super cool. He's doing this like pose where he's throwing the spear thing. I called it his sword before. I should clarify that it's called the Lance of Legingris, sometimes called the Spear of Legingris. It's important later on in the show. I won't kind of spoil it, but as you can tell, it's pretty hardcore. And this figure has so many cool things that I want to show, but I just want to quickly note a few things I didn't mention before. The original version of this figure came out in 1999. This version, the 2020 version, came out June of 2020, and it actually retailed for about $240, not $300, which I said before. I just wanted to clarify those two things. But let's jump into the fun stuff. Okay, so as you can see, the posability is insane. The neck, it's a little constrained at the neck, but otherwise everything else can move, however you want. Let's see, let me move this out of the way so we can get a little bit of a better view here. So you can see on the feet here, there's actually two different versions of things that you could put on. There's this or this, almost kind of like little sneakers for him, and there are these shin guards that you could put on, I guess if you want to put him into like armored mode. He's got these, I guess it's supposed to be like an ammo or something, and that clips in over here. And the entire figure uses these series of pegs, so you could basically attach anything wherever you want it. So it has sort of these little peg things that help you place things wherever you want. And then it's also got the same pegs. Let's move it to the side. It's got the same pegs over here, so you could kind of put all of his weapons in there. So I got his swords on one side. I got his guns on the other, and kind of also can see the figure from a few different views here. What's also really cool, I don't want to ruin my pose, but you could see these clips over here. So the entire figure actually clips into that, and you could put his arms into these little handcuffs over here, which you could open up. So if you kind of want to have, a pose where he's, being restrained or something like that, you could do that. As you can see here, I have the plug-in for his, energy. Like I said, obviously a whole bunch of different hands. The guns are like super. Let me try to get the guns out here. Hold on. Oops, knocking everything down. Let me just, here, you can see the kind of final angle here. But yeah, so the guns, let's see how these little clips on. Even just like super little things like, you think that, okay, this is just a little pistol, whatever, but you could actually kind of, make the action of reloading it. And it also has a little clip right here where you can reload it. Oh, I'll probably put it in the right way. It's probably more helpful. But yeah, so, you could recreate a variety of different poses. Similarly, this rifle here also has a clip that you could load in as well. And then the rifle also, let me see if I can get the rifle off. The rifle has a few different add-ons, so I don't know what this is. It looks like some kind of cool gas thing, but you could put that there. You can put like a little musket add-on thing. I'm not 100% sure how this one goes in, but you get the point. And then it also has this, I believe it's like a sniper rifle add-on. That goes on. Okay, yeah. So that like scope goes on the bottom, and I'm going to assume that the musket also goes on the bottom like that. Yeah. So lots of cool weapons, lots of cool add-ons, obviously hands for everything. The posability, like I said, is completely insane. This is the pose. And actually, one other thing that I wanted to note just about the posability, if you look at his left foot here, you could actually see that the toe portion of his foot is actually posable. So I was really happy that I had a pose that was like able to show off that posability, because it does kind of make sense, right? If you're kind of going for this throw, you might go all the way back on your toe like that. So I guess all in all, amazing show, amazing figure. I have only good things to say about this figure. If I was going to nitpick, I mean, maybe, like a lot of the kind of higher end metal stuff, you got to be really careful with all the pieces because it seems like at any time something might rub off or break. But, that's what you're getting into when you kind of buy figures like this. Otherwise, I guess maybe I also wish that the head was a little bit more movable, and maybe if I played around with it a little bit more, I could get a few more degrees of it. But yeah, all in all, really no complaints about this figure. I think at $250, it's a really good price. It's mostly sold out. They have done a few reprints. I think they did like 1 or 2 reprints of it this year, so it's possible might still be able to get one. And I've seen the EVA-02 unit still in stock some places for about the retail price of $250. So it's not too late to get on this. Definitely check it out. Thanks so much for watching the video. And please make sure to join me next week where we get back to our kind of Gundam Primer series, and we're going to take a look at the RX-178 Gundam Mark II. Please make sure to check out the other videos on the channel. I've had some reviews of the Gundam movies and the new Gundam Hathaway movie, so please make sure to check that out. Thanks so much, and keep collecting.